So we'll do some questions and answers. I will try to answer. If you ask me in French, I'll try. I may need some help.
Bonsoir, Marc Poulain. What
Bonsoir.
about exchange rates, please?
What about exchange rates?
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with Bitcoins. And,
Okay. So Bitcoin works exactly the same way as every other currency works, which means that Bitcoin is traded on international markets. It's traded at the moment against probably 35 to 40 different national currencies in real time and directly. But it's also affected by fluctuations between those currencies indirectly. So it's pretty much exchangeable for anything. If you can trade into 34 currencies, you can trade those into anything else. The exchange rate is defined by market dynamics, supply demand, just like, you know, one day you wake up and the British pound is 6% lower. Well, you know, sometimes that happens in Bitcoin too. Actually, this year it's been the most successful and stable currency. So it depends on the time of year you find it. You have to understand that Bitcoin is still a very small currency in terms of the fact that Bitcoin is a global currency from day one, but it's only $10 billion in size. So as a result, it has more volatility than many of the currencies you are used to. So more volatility than the euro. But what we've seen over the last 7 years is that gradually the volatility is reduced over time. As it gets bigger, more stable. Yes? We have one question over here. I'll get right back to you. Yes?
Hi, Andreas.
Hello.
It's a bit surreal for me to actually see you in person around 5 years back when I first got into Bitcoin and blockchain. Your book, your articles, and your videos were a major source of information for me.
Thank you.
And I owe you, and I'm sure I speak for other people over here as well, a big intellectual debt.
Thank you.
Speaking of debt, in the context of moving towards a cashless system, I think what we're seeing today is a certain kind of an impasse in which you have the possibility of creating private cashless systems and public cashless systems, meaning fiat versus private systems.
Yes.
So private was, explored by Hayek, for example, in denationalization of currency. And I'm kind of trying to understand how can we reduce debt, because from a macroeconomic perspective, that's the big problem that we have today, excessive amounts of debt build-up. Mm-hmm. Which do you think is a better way to go? Should we go towards reducing fractional banking by having 100% reserves, which would be, if you have public money issued on a blockchain, for example? Or should we go towards private issuance of currency in order to counteract the buildup of debt? And that overhang, of course.
I think we're probably going to see both things happen, but they won't be precipitated by Bitcoin. They'll be precipitated by a fairly catastrophic collapse in debt. And that will happen simply because no one can pay. The bottom line is everyone's bankrupt. And when everyone's bankrupt, you can keep dancing around the chairs and pretending that you're not. And then the music stops and someone's left standing, and then the whole thing comes down. I think we're living in an unprecedented time when you have 24 central banks that have set interest rates to zero, debt through the roof. We know how this was resolved in the past. We remember those events, calmly as World War I and World War II. That's how we resolved debt in the past. I'm hoping this time we find a slightly better solution. But the bottom line is debt is the big problem. Bitcoin is the little thing in the corner, and it's not going to solve anything right now. It may allow some people to escape some of the ravages of debt and currency crisis. It already is doing that for a tiny, tiny fraction of the population in places like Venezuela and Argentina and Greece and Cyprus. But again, tiny, 0.001%. That's not going to save anyone. And so really that's a question for economists, and it's outside of my particular area of expertise. I think it's a very bad situation. Over there, yes.
Hi Andreas, thank you very much for the great speech.
Thank you.
I have a question about Bitcoin governance.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know your point of view about establishing a fee market for Bitcoin, because I'm very concerned about a transaction being very easy for poor people and having very low fees for transact money over the world. And I know that there is a portion of the community that want to establish a fee market for Bitcoin. that could raise actually fees for transferring money, transferring Bitcoin. I want to have your point of view on this subject. Thank you.
So there is a fee market for Bitcoin now. There has been a fee market, and that fee market was not important until we reached the point where capacity was critical. And fee markets don't matter if you have unlimited capacity. And once you reach a point where capacity is constrained, then fee markets come into play. Fee markets are not a choice. Fee markets are not, hey, should we do a fee market or should we not do a fee market? Markets happen. And you can say, don't do a market, and markets will happen anyway. So fee markets will happen. And if you don't make a primary fee market, people are going to build a secondary fee market by using up all of the space and then reselling it in a fee market. So fee markets will happen whether you like it or not. The question is, how do we create the possibility of fulfilling transactions at much greater volume for people who can't afford